Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, May 12th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show is Corbin Burnes back. We had 2 complete game shutouts from improbable pitchers, I would say. Waiver wire moves, starter sit decisions, and much more. Before we get into it, just want to send a heartfelt Happy Mother's Day out there to all the great moms. We wouldn't be here without you. So thank you for being amazing.
Literally.
Let's jump in.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, I'm going to start us off with Corbin Burnes because this is exactly how it would happen. Everybody benches Corbin Burnes, and then he has his best start of the season against the Dodgers. 7 shutout innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 12 whiffs on 91 pitches in this start. Average exit velocity against looked good here. Actually lowered the cutter usage and mixed in all of his other pitches, and it worked. His changeup was especially good in this start. I don't actually think he's all the way back, but I think it's notable that he had a tremendous start against one of the hottest, one of the best lineups in all of baseball. And this week he gets the Rockies in Arizona. So load him up.
Yeah, absolutely. Start him this week. And then probably try to sell Corbin Burnes. Which I feel like we are going to say sell high on this pitcher a lot today. So buckle in and get used to that, because I don't know. I don't know if there's any good pitchers right now, or at least any pitchers that I like who are actually succeeding right now. But anyway, Burnes made some real changes to his approach in this one. It was especially to right-handed batters, it was much fewer cutters, more sliders and curveballs for Corbin Burnes. The cutter still doesn't look like it should. The velocity was back up in this one, and that's good to see, but still looks like a mediocre four-seamer more than the dominant cutter that it's been in the past. 12 inches of induced vertical break, not as much horizontal break. It just... the result was good. I just don't know how sustainable it was.
Which day was this of the weekend that Corbin Burnes did this? I want to take a second look. It was Saturday.
Yep.
I want to take a second look at the pitch breakdown here. Because I wonder if he's kind of reverting to the approach that he had for most of his year in Baltimore when the cutter wasn't working. If he's just kind of like acknowledging, okay, it's not there. I can't rely on it the way I have most of my career, so I gotta mix in other stuff and hope to keep hitters off balance that way. Which it caught up. It worked fine for most of last year. The strikeout rate was down, but he was still more or less an ace in fantasy. And then it caught up to him in August, and then he figured things out with the cutter supposedly. But it's been gone this year. So yeah, I mean the top line result was fine. I mean it was good. Obviously 7 shutout innings against the Dodgers. I don't think anybody was expecting that. But the everything under the hood was still pretty underwhelming. And so I remain concerned about Burnes long-term.
I think that's fair. I don't know that I would say everything wasn't, great under the hood here. The fact that he didn't allow hard contact and at least the other pitches look pretty good. We still want to see that cutter get back on track, but I do agree. Get him back in your lineups this week against the Rockies. And if he has an awesome start, try to recoup, I don't know, top 15, top 12 starting pitcher value. I don't even know if that's possible, but you can try. Chris, let's go over to you for your player of the weekend.
Tomoyuki Sugano, who continues to pitch incredibly effectively for the Baltimore Orioles, the lone bright spot in their rotation. It was 7 1/3, 1-run innings, 5 strikeouts, 0 walks. That is no start. It's actually amazing. No starts with more than 3 earned runs allowed this season for Sugano, which, like, remember that start against the Yankees where I think he gave up, was it against the Yankees? There was one start where he gave up like 2 home runs in his first 3 batters faced, and then ended up going 7 innings. That might have been the start against Cleveland. He's been really good. He's got a 2.72 ERA and a 1.01 WHIP, and don't ask about any of the other statistics that we typically cite to try to figure out if pitchers are good, because those don't look good. He's got a 4.90 xERA. He's got the FIP and xFIP are both solidly over 4. I don't know exactly where those numbers are, if anybody has them in front of them. 461 FIP. I don't know. Like, this happens every year. There's someone, usually multiple pitchers, who have a lot of success early on, and some of them sustain it all year, and it goes against everything that we think we know about pitching. And look, Seth Lugo's going on like 2.5 years of outperforming his peripherals. So maybe there's something here with Sugano, his 6-pitch mix, his very, very good control. Maybe there's something that can help him continue to outrun expectations. But he has a 14.2% strikeout rate for the season. There have only been 2 qualifying seasons between 2021 and 2024 with a strikeout rate below 15%. You can't, like, it's actually, I was trying to do well, here's how poorly those pitchers do, but it's like, it doesn't matter. The 2 pitchers who had a lower strikeout rate than him from 2021 to 2024 had a 5.28 and 4.13 ERA. It's a 2-person sample size. That's how low Sugano's strikeout rate is that there's basically no precedent for it in recent years. If you expand it to anyone below a 17% strikeout rate, you get 12 pitchers. 2 of them had an ERA below 4 in the season where they had a strikeout rate below 17%. Collectively, they had a 4.71 ERA. I know strikeout rate isn't everything, and Sugano has very good command and has a walk rate under 5 and all that stuff. He's not generating a lot of weak contact. It's a 394 expected WOBA on contact.
That's how you get that xERA. That's almost 5.
That's the thing, is like, you can make a Kyle Hendricks comp if you want to, but Hendricks was a significantly better strikeout pitcher than Tomoyuki Sugano. He was like a 20% strikeout rate guy at his peak, 20 to 22%. He was closer to average. And Hendricks was consistently one of the best in the majors at limiting hard contact over like a 6-year span. And Sugano hasn't shown that skill. So I know we're going to get yelled at, and I know there are going to be people saying upset, people who are upset that we are dismissing Sugano, but I'm going to dismiss him. And if he has another good start next time that looks like this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue to not believe in it, because at some point this works out. Someone on Twitter mentioned that Martin Perez season in 2022, where he was just awesome all year. And like, sometimes that happens. Sometimes guys can outrun their peripherals for a whole year. 1, you shouldn't bet on outliers. And 2, Martin Perez has like a 4.30 ERA since that season. Like, it'll regress at some point.
Yeah, it may, a pitcher could overachieve for an entire season even.
Yeah.
But eventually, I'm sorry, we wanted to wrap up that
No,
point.
go.
Okay. I will say, I don't know. There was one person who was very upset on Twitter about us continuing to badmouth Sugano or whatever. But I don't think that, like, Sugano's only 55% rostered in CBS leagues. So I don't think, even though his ERA looks great now, 2.72, I don't think a lot of people are buying into it. If I were to steel man the case for Tomoyuki Sugano, it would be, okay, so you're saying he has a 14% strikeout rate now. 3 starts ago was an 8% strikeout rate.
It's up to 17% over his last 5 starts, I think.
Yeah. Also, that 5-start stretch to open the season where his ERA was at 3.54 and the whip was pretty high too, and the strikeout rate was non-existent. So that's really where, like, he was being dropped in even 15-teamers, Sugano. So he allowed in those first 5 starts 6 of the 7 home runs he's allowed in all. So there could be, there is a possibility like he needed an adjustment period.
Sure.
You know? And now we're seeing the last 3 starts are closer to Sugano's true form, where he's not giving up so many home runs, where he is missing not Not like a great number of at bats,
Mhm.
but a survivable number of bats. And if things were to go right for Sugano going forward, maybe we mark the start of that 3-start stretch. April 28th is the turning point. But I do think on the whole, you're betting against a lot of
Trends.
Yeah, a lot of tendencies that we know are bad for pitchers. You're kind of betting on Sugano being a unicorn, which is possible, but unicorn sightings are rare for a reason.
Unicorns exist.
Of course.
You just rarely see them. You know, if you see a thing that looks like a horse, you shouldn't assume it's a unicorn. You should assume it's a horse.
I will say with Sugano, this week he faces the Twins, and they are 22nd in WOBA against right-handed pitching this season. So
sure,
if you want to ride
Like
it while it's
stream
hot
him.
and just keep going until the
It
wheels
ain't-
fall off, but just know you might be caught with the bag at
Yeah.
some point.
Like we did this with
whenever
Mitchell
this-
Parker 2 weeks ago, I think, where it was the same. Like Mitchell Parker had this amazing 4-start stretch or whatever to open the season, and we probably had the exact same discussion, and he got destroyed, I think, in 2 consecutive starts. And if you started him for at least one of them, if you only started him for one of them, great. I guess you avoided the worst case scenario, but these things have a tendency of falling apart in spectacular fashion.
Sugano didn't make my list of 10 streamer pitchers for this week.
All right, Scott. Well, let's go over to you for your player of the weekend, Lucas Giolito.
Thanks for reminding me who it was, because after that long conversation, I totally forgot. Yes, let's talk about Lucas Giolito, who I think I'd go so far as to say was great on Sunday. 6 2/3 innings at Kansas City. He did allow an unearned run, but only 2 hits, only 1 walk. Struck out 5 in 6 2/3 innings. 10 whiffs on 88 pitches. Okay, that's pretty pedestrian, the strikeouts and the whiffs there. But here is the key for Lucas Giolito. Fastball velocity up 1.5 miles per hour from his first 2 starts. Slider up 3 miles per hour. Changeup up 1.5. Curveball up 3.2. Way up across the board, the velocities for Giolito. And that's kind of what we've been harping on this whole time, because we were saying, okay, his velocity comes back from Tommy John surgery. It looked about the same as when we last saw him, but he was terrible when we last saw him. And he hadn't been good since 2021. That was like the last Lucas Giolito borderline ace for fantasy season, where he struck out more than 200 guys. He averaged 93.8 on his fastball that season. Got up to 94 in this startup. Average on the fastball. So it was right there. Now, does that mean he's just back to being 2021 Giolito and prior? I'm skeptical. It's only 1 start. And what's weird about it is I mentioned the velocity on all his other pitches were up. Well, the velocity on his other pitches prior to the start were fine. They looked about like 2021. It was really just the fastball that was lagging. So now the fastball back to 2021, but all the other pitches are like way above 2021 if this start is just the new normal for Giolito. So more has to be sorted out here. We have to see if he can sustain this, first of all, how his entire arsenal plays, if the velocity on the secondaries is messed up. Like I said, he didn't actually get many whiffs or strikeouts in the start, though the overall result was great. But if nothing else, it's enough for me to say, okay, I'll devote a roster spot to Giolito, see if this does end up turning into something, when particularly after a second start when he just got crushed. It was like, what's the point?
Yeah, he also basically didn't throw his slider and curveball in the first 2 starts. It was negligent, like 95% of his pitches were fastballs and changeups. And this one, he actually threw the slider more than the changeup. So that's another. It's not necessarily a good or bad sign, but it's a change from his previous couple of starts. I think the way to think about it with Giolito is, if you hadn't already dropped him, this is a good excuse not to. And I'm not so sure, I'm not sure AJ Smith-Shawver would be worth dropping Giolito for. I think the upside is fairly similar there. I'm trying to think of some of the other. Like I wouldn't do it for Sugano.
Yeah, I'd prefer Giolito to Sugano is what I'm saying. Not Smith-Shawver. Smith-Shawver was like my top starting pitcher waiver ad this weekend, but
there is two pitchers available in at least 24% of CBS fantasy leagues that I would drop Giolito for. Bubba Chandler, he's going to get called up, I think, in the next week or two. Mm-hmm. Ryan Weathers is starting on Wednesday. I don't want to start him this week, but
yeah, the Cubs tough matchup.
Yeah, Cubs tough matchup, but velocity has been right where we wanted it to be in his rehab assignment. The results have been pretty good. I do think Ryan Weathers, he hasn't pitched yet, and we haven't seen the success come from this velocity jump. And obviously, injury risk is very high after he suffered a flexor strain. But I do think there is more upside with Ryan Weathers than Giolito personally.
All right, before we hit our first break, big thanks to everyone for watching us live. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Let's take that break, and we'll be back right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Other just really big performances I wanted to get out of the way up top here and just quickly mention. Ronel Blanco was a beast against the Reds here on Sunday. 8 shutout innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, 16 whiffs on 101 pitches. He allowed just 1 hard hit in this game, and he faded the fastball. He threw his slider more, and I was trying to think of a comp for Ronel Blanco, and I thought a little bit about Reese Olson, how he has those 2 awesome secondary pitches, except Blanco has 3 really good secondary pitches, and like Reese Olson, his four-seam fastball is just not very good. So I think if he moves away from that fastball a little bit and throws those secondaries more, maybe we have something here, but it's a quality start in 3 of his last 4 outings. He's only 56% started and at the Rangers this week. So I think it's like all systems go. Get Ronel Blanco back in your lineup if you have him.
I think this was the best start of his career, and that includes the no-hitter last year. I think this was more impressive. 11 strikeouts over 8 shutout innings. That's really good. I kind of think his skill set looks a little more impressive than it did last year. Obviously, coming off of an 11 strikeout, 8 inning game, makes it a little easier to say, but his xERA is significantly lower than it was last season. He's getting more weak contact. So I don't know. I'm a little more optimistic about Ronel Blanco than I expected to be.
There you go. Coming into this start, he had a 14.2% swinging strike rate, which is elite. Yeah. And it's coming into this start. It went up with this start. So I wish you had let us draft him for our shared team, Chris. You were right on not letting us draft Reynaldo Lopez.
It went pretty poorly for. Actually, no, we did end up taking Robert Suarez, didn't we?
Yeah. Yes, we did.
That's like the only thing that's gone well for that team so far.
And that was the pick that I was most upset about throughout that draft.
Well, none of us wanted. He felt like 70 picks.
It's been our best pick, I think, by far. Tarik Skubal, also want to mention, maybe the best pitcher start this season. 7 innings, 1 run, 12 strikeouts, 32 whiffs on 96 pitches is just absurd for Tarik Skubal in this outing. And coming off a Cy Young season, his underlying numbers this year are even better. It's kind of crazy.
He's pretty good. Remember when he had like 2 not great starts at the beginning of the season?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. He has allowed a total of 4 earned runs over his last 6 starts after those 2 that you just mentioned. Also wanted to bring up Jason Dominguez, who had a 3-homer game on Friday, 3 for 4 with a triple dong, including a grand slam. He had 7 RBI in that game. Also added 2 more hits on Sunday. Really helped the overall line look much more respectable this weekend. Now hitting .250 with 5 home runs, 3 steals, a .791 OPS. Striking out too much, a 31% strikeout rate. Underlying plate discipline stuff doesn't look that bad. You want the quality of contact to look a little bit better. Where are you guys at overall? Obviously, this weekend helps much more, but what are your just overall thoughts on what we've got from Dominguez so far?
Oh, I'd been underwhelmed. I'd moved him way down in my rankings, in part because the Yankees had taken to sitting him every third game or so.
To be fair, they're kind of just doing that around the diamond. Like they're sitting out Bellinger here and there. They're sitting out Ben Rice. They're sitting out Goldschmidt just because Trent Grisham has been so good. Yeah, they got to find a way to get him in. So,
obviously Jason Dominguez been a top prospect since he was 16 years old, and he's in his rookie season. Technically, I know we saw a little bit of him the previous 2 years, but this is technically his rookie season, and so. I think the upside's very high. And if this is the start of him making good on it, it wouldn't be that surprising. It had been underwhelming to this point, like I said, but I think all I can say at this point is hopefully this means he plays more and you got to have him rostered if possible, because we know how high the upside is. It's just kind of waiting to find out what happens next.
The one thing I will say that still looks like a really big red flag for Jason Dominguez. And we're dealing with small sample sizes all the way across his career, no matter how you want to slice it up. But he has been pretty bad as a right-handed hitter so far.
Yep.
It's like a 450 OPS. It's only 77 plate appearances, but the strikeout rate right around 33%. Getting a little young Yohan Moncada vibes from Jason Dominguez in that, like he's a switch hitter, but kind of in name only. He hasn't been able to hit for power from one side of the plate as well.
That is pretty typical of switch hitters, though.
It's not.
They're usually bad from one side.
There's usually one where they're better.
You'd rather it be from the right-handed side, obviously.
Yes. But that still looks like a red flag for me. But yeah, and part of the problem with his playing time is the defense is still pretty bad. And so
is that just based on like StatCast stuff, Chris?
Yeah, the StatCast range factor outs above average is -5, which is in the first percentile. Maybe his other metrics are better, but that's one where if Trent Grisham is at all for real, he might just be a better player than Jason Dominguez right now overall, which is tough. Well, I'm not saying that I believe that yet, but
yeah,
it's not unjustified that Dominguez was losing playing time.
No, it wasn't. I mean, he was bad. I think I dropped him to like around 60th in my outfield rankings. That's how, obviously I regret it now. But you just don't know.
Yeah.
With a talent like that, you just don't know how the trajectory of the development, and so when he does something like this, I think he hit the first from the right side, the first home run of his career in the 3-homer game, right? Wasn't that one of the three? I think I remember reading that, but
yeah, because he hit a home run from both sides of the plate, and then I think the grand slam was from the left-hand side.
Yeah. And I'm looking at his career splits. Yeah, only one against the left-handed pitcher. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not. Do you have to roster him in a 3 outfielder league? Probably not, because I don't think we're ready to start him in a standard league context. But certainly 5 outfielder leagues, he's got to be rostered. And hopefully,
hey guys,
you're making faces like Robot Scott is back.
Big news!
Oh, I just saw it.
Jordan Lawler's getting promoted tomorrow.
Oh,
that's exciting.
Yes, it certainly is.
I don't know how exciting it is because I have no idea where he's going to play, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I remember.
We don't need breaking news on a Sunday podcast, by the way.
No, we don't.
We already have enough to cover Major League Baseball.
Yes, but obviously we should talk about this. Jordan Lawlar, who has been a top prospect for years now. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He got actually called up a couple of years ago, but he's dealt with a lot of injuries since then, and now down in the minors this season, he has been absolutely crushing it, and we were wondering when he would get an opportunity to get called up to the D-backs. He's 45% rostered on CBS right now. Shortstop eligible. I know he's been playing at second base in the minors. He's been playing at third base. I don't know, initial reactions.
Well, Suarez, I thought maybe that presented the clearest path, but he had at least one big game this weekend, so I doubt he's just going to overtake Suarez. I had suggested the possibility in a recent prospects report. Okay, maybe they shift Corbin Carroll to center field, have Pavin Smith play right field primarily, and then get an infield rotation going through DH with Jordan Lawlar kind of bouncing around the infield or playing DH sometimes himself. Did Tim Tawa get sent down to make room for
I don't think
Lawlar?
that's been reported yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because he was kind of playing the super utility role, but his hitting had really dried up. So it would kind of make sense for that reason if they felt like they could just give Tawa's playing time to Lawlar. I don't know, though. I mean, I'd rather there be a clear opening where we knew he was going to play every day. I think it's hard to know what to expect from Lawlar.
Everything that they have said, both publicly and according to reports based on behind the scenes stuff, is they still view him as a key part of their plan, long-term plan. They still they love Perdomo, but the extension for him was not necessarily a sign of a lack of confidence in Jordan Lawlar. It was a sign of, they really like Perdomo. It's like you said, you'd rather there be an obvious spot for him. And I'm surprised Jordan Lawlar didn't get any playing time in the outfield at AAA, just because that would seem like the easiest spot. He should have the athleticism to do the center field transition that we've seen lots of middle infielders make on the fly in recent years. Jazz Chisholm being a prominent example.
Jackson
Merrill. Yeah. Like guys who have no or limited experience in the outfield have done that. It just, are they going to do that with his first inning as a professional in the outfield coming in the majors? I would guess at this point, the first time Jordan Lawlar appears in a major league game or an outfield game as a professional will come in the majors, just because I think he's probably up for good now, but I don't think they're just going to play him out every day in the outfield. So I think there will be some headaches along the way. I also think Jordan Lawlar might be the type of prospect where it doesn't matter. He's just so good that they find a spot for him somewhere. But he's got to, I think the thing is he has to hit. This is not going to be a situation where he just gets 6 weeks to prove himself. If he gets, he'll probably start 5 of his first 7 career games. And if he's not hitting, it might be 4 of the next 7,
Yeah. So just to give people a reminder of what we're getting excited about here, Jordan Lawlar was batting .336 with 6 homers and 13 steals at AAA and .992 OPS. He was, his average exit velocity is 88.8. And that's always been, it's always been kind of in the high 80s range. He's not somebody who hits the crap out of the ball. He relies on elevating to his pull side for his power. And he was playing his games at AAA Reno, which is a very, very favorable place to hit. So that's why I don't think we can just take it to the bank that he's going to provide. You really shouldn't with any call-up at this point. But I think especially Lawlar, there are some concerns in the profile there. It reminds me a little of Anthony Volpe, if I'm being completely honest. But hopefully it won't go that way. Definitely expect him to steal bases. Definitely expect him to walk a fair amount. And beyond that, just hope he gets consistent enough playing time to factor outside of deep roto leagues.
Yeah. 45% rostered. I mentioned that for Jordan Lawlar. I wouldn't call him a must-add in all formats. I don't think you need to add him in points leagues right away, but I think obviously any roto league with a middle infield spot, and then even head-to-head categories, I think I would probably want to add him and just see what happens from here. So,
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's sort of like we're redoing that. Interrupted us talking about Jason Dominguez. That's kind of what we're redoing with him, and now you do it with Lawlar too.
Yeah. When we got interrupted, I was going to mention just some crazy games that happened this weekend too, real quick. The Dodgers come back on Friday against the D-backs. They were down 3 runs in the 9th inning. They put up a 6 spot, capped off by Shohei Ohtani's 3-run homer, his 12th of the season, and he has just been a monster so far in May, as has Freddie Freeman. They're both just going off right now. The Reds scored 10 runs in the first inning on Saturday before the Astros even had a chance to bat. So sorry, Lance McCullers, you got bombed in your second start back. It's a pretty rough one. Only 1 out recorded, 7 earned runs for him. And then the Padres beat the Rockies 21-0 on Saturday, 24 hits in that game, 5 home runs, 1 for each of Gavin Sheets, Jake Cronenworth, Jason Hayward, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr. And then on Sunday, the Rockies relieved their manager, Bud Black, of his duties. So obviously, look, 7-33, whatever it is, and a blowout loss like this, not great for Bud Black and the Rockies there. But they are going into an interim manager here. We'll see what they can do. I don't really think that anyone can succeed with the roster that they put together, but I guess we will see. Just wanted to quickly ask on Cronenworth. When he's played this season, he's been great. He's only played 15 games, 52% rostered. Do you think that number needs to be much higher for Jake Cronenworth?
It needs to be higher. Is he like, are you picking up Lawlar or Cronenworth? You're probably picking up Lawlar, right? So if we're saying that Lawlar probably doesn't need to be rostered in points leagues yet, then I would imagine Cronenworth, same goes for him. So he's not going to get that roster percentage up in the 80s. But yeah, it needs to be higher than 52, you said? Yeah.
I just before we move on, we haven't talked about him like barely at all this season. Fernando Tatis looks like him, as the kids say, capital H, him, not the early 2000s new metal band him, but really good player. Looks like he's finally living up to all that potential after the injuries and stuff. He's having one of his best seasons ever, so you love to see that.
Do the kids still say him?
Dude, I'm almost 40. I don't know that.
I mean, Scott, you're the only one here with kids, so I don't know.
That's true.
You told me the other day that your kids like to say bruh a lot.
Yeah,
do they say him?
My 10-year-old niece refers to me as bruh. And it's like, show some respect.
It's not that they call me bruh. It's kind of like an interjection to express contempt. Like, really? Except instead of
bruh.
Really, they say,
well,
bruh.
that's the response I'm always getting from my niece to everything I say is really.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, new segment soon. You heard it here first, bruh. Let's take our final break, and I guess we'll finally get to news. We're like 30 minutes into the podcast. We'll do
got
that.
To one news item.
Yeah, one news item right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Let's quickly run through the news and notes. Blake Snell is getting another opinion on his shoulder Monday from Dodgers team doctors as he continues to deal with left shoulder soreness. His plans to resume playing catch earlier this week were shelved as the shoulder continues to bother him. The good news for the Dodgers is that Tyler Glasnow did resume throwing this weekend as expected. So pretty rocky start there for Blake Snell and his Dodgers career. O'Neal Cruz left Saturday due to lower back tightness and then was out of the lineup Sunday. The Pirates said that Cruz is day-to-day, and we have a lot of just kind of ambiguous hitter situations like this right now, and people are going to have to figure out whether to start or sit. So what do you guys think about O'Neal Cruz this week?
I think towards starting, but...
Yeah, just because they're acting like it's a day-to-day injury, but it is like most of these injuries I heard about them and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's going on the 10-day IL and it's like, he might play tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if we're just at a point in the season where teams are like, we can't play it this carefully anymore. We're running out of players. I'd lean towards starting Cruz, I guess.
Yordan Alvarez has been cleared to resume gripping a bat and could start hitting off a tee on Monday. Jackson Merrill was scratched from the lineup Sunday due to an illness. The Padres play again on Monday, so we'll find out right away if he's back in the lineup. If he is, obviously you start Jackson Merrill. Corey Seager was out of the lineup Sunday after his right hamstring tightened up on him on Saturday. Apparently he missed Thursday and Friday for that same hamstring injury. feels like the Rangers might have rushed him back here. He did play on Saturday, and he hit 2 home runs, so I don't really know what to do with that. But
Yeah.
do you start Corey Seager this week?
I'm inclined to start him, but I don't know.
I mean, when you get a recurrence like this,
Yeah.
I think they'd be more likely to put him on the IL. So I lean towards sitting Seager if you could get a decent shortstop alternative.
Jose Altuve left Saturday due to right hamstring tightness and then was out of the lineup Sunday. Apparently, he's still dealing with some tightness, but said that he feels better. The hope is that he can return within a few days. Start or sit Altuve.
I was trying to pick up backup second baseman in the shallower leagues, leagues where like a Jonathan India type was available. I was trying to secure that as a fill-in for Altuve.
Yeah.
Luis Robert missed Saturday and Sunday with right knee soreness. The expectation is that he'll return Tuesday, but we don't know for sure. Start or sit Luis Robert.
I'd prefer to sit him. That might be tough in a 5 outfielder league.
The thing that's so tough is the main thing he's hitting better lately, but the main thing he's been providing is a ton of steals.
Yep.
How confident do you feel in that being the case with a knee injury? That I'd lean towards sitting.
Ian Happ missed Saturday and Sunday's game due to an oblique injury. He played catch and took swings on Sunday. There is some hope that he'll return on Monday. Start or sit Ian Happ.
I probably try to sit him. Again, 5 outfielder leagues, you may not have a choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Santander also missed 3 straight with a left shoulder injury. He's the last one I've got for you guys. Start or sit Anthony Santander.
That's kind of easier to sit because he's off to such a poor start anyway.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe it'll be a Corbin Burnes situation, but then you'll have next week to look forward to activating Santander. Set him for now.
Chris mentioned this earlier, but Ryan Weathers will make his season debut this Wednesday against the Cubs. He's 34% rostered and a name that you can look to add. He was available in some 12-team roto leagues and deeper that we play in. The NFBC league, we actually picked him up for like $34 out of 1,000. So looking forward to Ryan Weathers, though we don't want to play him this week, just more of a long-term play. Andres Jimenez was placed on the IL Friday with a right quad strain. Ernie Clement started all 3 games at second base for the Blue Jays this weekend. The Brewers moved Freddie Peralta's start back to Monday, so unfortunately he did not start this past week for those who had him in the lineup, but that does make Peralta a 2-star pitcher at the Guardians and home against the Twins this week. Logan Gilbert could throw off a mound by the end of Seattle's current homestand, which ends on Wednesday. George Kirby made his second rehab start Saturday. He allowed 3 earned runs over 3 innings pitched, and his velocity was pretty close to last year. He got up to 54 pitches in this one. Spencer Strider said that he feels ready to return, but the Braves have yet to decide whether he'll be activated this week or go on a rehab assignment. Scott,
either way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Scott, have you heard any rumblings from the Braves beat on Spencer Strider?
Not beyond this. No, I think it's too questionable for you to roll the dice on him.
I think even if we knew he was starting, I just first start back with no rehab assignment, even though it's only been a 3-week absence or whatever. I'd prefer to just let him get one under his belt.
Casey Mize was placed in the IL with a left hamstring strain. Kader Montero would make sense to replace him in the meantime. Hayden Wesneski went on the IL with right elbow discomfort. Ryan Gusto will rejoin the Astros rotation on Monday, which I believe makes him a 2-star pitcher. Scott, do you have any interest in Ryan Gusto as a 2-starter?
He was in the no thanks section of the updated 2-star pitcher rankings. He hasn't been bad this year, and I had a bid in for him at a 15-team league. I don't think I ended up getting him, but in a deeper league like that, you might think about it. Generally, though, no.
So you do not Gusto.
No me gusto. I want to bring up something. Nick Piacoro, I think is how you pronounce his name, beat writer of the Diamondbacks. He says that according to Torey Lovello, the plan is to play Lawlar 4 games a week at various positions, and he doesn't think that'll stunt his development. So it sounds like he's going to be less than a full-time player, which kind of takes the wind out of the sails there a bit, at least to start out.
I would still say add him in categories leagues because he also could very well play his way into a bigger role. I would assume that's their hope. There's one news item I noticed is not on here.
What do we got?
Sounds like Jake Burger's going to be back this week. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. But there was a quote from Bruce Bochy, right? That's the guy from Bruce Bochy.
I believe he hasn't been fired yet.
Saying that they expect him to be back. The Dallas Morning News reported it could be as early as Monday. I think we are hoping he's going to be ready to go then. He's getting better swings off. He's looking good there. We're comfortable with where he's at. That was a guy who was basically a top 100 pick a month and a half ago. And I don't think anything about Jake Burger has actually changed between now and when he was a top 100 pick. He shouldn't have been a top 100 pick, but I think it's absolutely possible that Jake Burger still ends up with 30 homers this season.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Bruce Bochy's getting fired. That was just a joke about all the managers getting fired.
Mm-hmm. Jake Burger, 48% rostered. Look, roto leagues, category leagues, if you need home runs, points leagues, stay away from Jake Burger there.
Fringe in points.
Yep. The Orioles option Kobe Mayo back to the minors. So again, we wait for him to get a real opportunity. The Brewers option Tobias Myers to AAA on Sunday. Brandon Woodruff and Aaron Savali are nearing their returns from the IL. And all of a sudden, the Brewers had no pitching to start the season. They have this surplus of depth at starting pitcher where, we're waiting for Logan Henderson to get a chance. Maybe Jacob Misiorowski at some point, but they also have these veterans that are about to return. So I don't think this is very good for the people stashing Logan Henderson.
No, it's not what you want.
But life finds a way.
It does. And it's one fewer obstacle, right? If Tobias Myers has pitched his way out of a rotation spot, then that's one down. That's one domino has fallen. Like we knew, I'd forgotten about Savale, to be honest, but we knew Woodruff was going to jump ahead of Henderson in line, and it's nice that Myers has removed himself from the queue now.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it might not be too long until Quinn Priester does the same thing. So,
well, I assumed he was going to be the one out for Woodruff, but apparently he'll be the one out for Savale instead.
Yep. We did have a few promotions this weekend. The White Sox promoted 26-year-old first baseman Tim Elko, who had 10 home runs and an 1,100 OPS in the minors. And the Angels promoted 24-year-old outfielder Matthew Lugo. Very deep league names, probably just AL only for now. But did you guys have any deep league interest in Tim Elko or Matthew Lugo?
More so Elko. He's had a good start to the season at AAA, but I think it's pretty unlikely he's anything more than a Gavin Sheets type. I will say, early team name Tuesday, Elko cooler.
I saw you write that on Blue Sky to me, and obviously I didn't understand.
Yeah, you have no idea what that is.
Is that like Ecto Cooler?
Yeah, that's what we're going for. Yeah.
Ecto 1, Elko 1, Elko 1A.
And maybe the most important news item of the weekend, the Reds. The Reds no ball, baby. They traded for my guy, Connor Joe. And what do you know? First game in there, 2 hits, stolen base. Come on, man. Just give the guy a chance. Right? Am I right? Right. Okay. All right, we'll move on. Let's get into some waiver wire options from the weekend. Evan Carter had himself a nice weekend. He hit a home run on Saturday, then 2 for 5 with a steal on Sunday. The overall line still doesn't look great, but to see some power and speed right away, 38% rostered. Were you aggressive at all in trying to add Evan Carter on Sunday?
Well, you were. I saw that. No, I mean, 5 outfielder leagues. He was the most interesting outfielder out there. And he actually did something interesting the other day. I think it was the same game where he had a home run, though I don't think it was the home run. It was the home run. Yeah. Hardest hit ball that we've seen when he played with StatCast available. In games where StatCast was available, he hit that ball 111 1.1 miles per hour. His previous high between AAA and the majors in a year, 108.7. So he hit it way harder.
It's good to see.
Yeah, that is exactly what we want to see from Evan Carter. It's just one batted ball, but it's a good sign. So, yeah, I think between that and the other multi-hit game this weekend, I think Carter's earned a second look at 5 outfielder leagues.
Agreed.
Ryan McMahon has really picked things up. He homered twice this weekend, and in 10 May games, he's hitting .419 with 4 home runs, a steal, and a .1473 OPS. We pretty much know who Ryan McMahon is. End of season, 240, 20-ish home runs. So, a deeper corner infielder, things like that. And the problem is that he's on the road this entire week. So just wanted to mention Ryan McMahon had a great week, but I don't think you really need to act on it. 2 deeper league names here. Brett Beatty showed off some power this weekend, homered on Friday, and then a double dong on Saturday. And he could get some playing time versus right-handed pitching. Jesse Winker is on the IL right now. And then Addison Barger for the Blue Jays had himself a nice weekend. 3 hits on Friday, and then hit a home run on Sunday. Some deep league names. Any interest in Beatty or Addison Barger?
Not outside of deep leagues. Beatty is one of those players that I kind of refuse to quit on, and I'm frustrated with myself because in the Scott White Dynasty League 24-teamer, I was tempted to add him for several days, and I finally put in a bid on the night he happened to hit 2 homers. So
and how much did you put on him, Scott?
$2. He went for 4.
Got it.
But
so he went for 4, and I had a $3 bid, so I was pretty
$3.
upset about it too.
But I could have got him for 1, and it's critical in this particular league because that becomes the starting salary. It's a dynasty league, so you want to bid enough to get him, but you don't want to bid so much that you're not going to be willing to keep him. So
there's an extra wrinkle. There's an extra wrinkle to this story, Scott. I actually picked Brett Beatty up earlier in the week, and then I dropped him. So how about that? So good job, Frank. Hopefully he doesn't become a superstar because then I would be pretty upset. Let's get into waiver wire pitchers from the weekend, and let's talk about Cade Horton, who made his debut for the Cubs, and he was okay at the Mets. Obviously, tough matchup here, but 4 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 0 walks. Love to see that. He did have 5 strikeouts here, 9 whiffs on 77 pitches. And Scott, as you suspected, it was mostly just 2 pitches, the fastball and the sweeper here for Cade Horton. He's 46% rostered. Looks like he gets the White Sox this week, so that's a pretty nice matchup there. Chris, any interest in Cade Horton this weekend?
Yeah, I would say non-zero interest. The problem is it's technically a 5-pitch mix, but functionally it's just 4-seamer slider or sweeper, I guess. He'll mix in a sinker, he'll mix in a changeup, he'll mix in a slider, or curveball. What's the other break? Slider? Either way, it's almost entirely those 2 pitches, and it gives me Ben Brown vibes where those 2 pitches are going to be enough most nights. And I think he probably has a little higher ceiling than Ben Brown, but if he doesn't show a reliable 3rd or 4th pitch, I think there's going to be a lot of short innings, a lot of inefficiency, and more flashes than anything that makes him a must roster pitcher. So worth adding. I would potentially stream him against the White Sox if I didn't have a ton of better options, but I don't think it's going to be an immediate fantasy impact for Cade Horton.
Giolito or Horton?
Giolito.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, who needs me? That was my next question, Scott. So thank you. I appreciate it. We had 2 complete game shutouts this weekend. And I mentioned up top, improbable candidates here. Eric Fetty, a 6-hit shutout at the Nationals. He did have 8 strikeouts to 0 walks in this one. Also allowed 15 hard hits in this start. And then Steven Kolek of the Padres turned in a 5-hit shutout at the Rockies. Yeah, I mean, that will... it's not a great look for the Rockies there. Did have 7 strikeouts to 2 walks in this one. Also allowed 12 hard hits. So, awesome starts for both of these guys. But are you looking to add either one?
No, I mean Kolek. There's nothing there. He was a pretty good ground ball guy in the minors. That's the best I could for him. But he had his 5 starts. I think it was 5 or 6 starts before getting called up. He had like a 6.30 ERA and. There's nothing there for Kolek. Fetty, he was decent last year, particularly early on after he got traded to the Cardinals. He faded and had a lot of short outings. It just wasn't that usable in fantasy anymore. I thought the whole season, basically, he overachieved, and his start to 2025 kind of validated that point of view. And then he has a great start. So I don't see anything here that's making me suspect he's turned a corner and is about to take off. So I am inclined to just pass on it. Just pass on this Fetty start.
Eric Fetty's as good as his next matchup, and his next matchup's at Philadelphia. So
there you go.
No interest in picking him up.
Only other thing I'll mention with Kolek, he is RP eligible. So if you play in a deeper points league, maybe, but standard 12-team leagues, nothing yet on Stephen Kolek. Other names here, AJ Smith-Shawver, who we've talked a lot about recently, had a strong start at the Pirates, 5 2/3, 1 run, 7 strikeouts with 13 whiffs on 97 pitches. And Shane Smith had a strong outing against the Marlins, 6 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts, 17 whiffs on 87 pitches. Maybe the best that Shane Smith has looked this season. He's at the Cubs. Obviously, you don't like that matchup. Smith-Shawver home against the Nationals. Who do you guys like more between the two?
For the upcoming week or just overall? Overall,
both.
I'm gonna take Smith-Shawver, and the simplest reason is he's not on the White Sox for starters, but he's also been a better bat misser overall, and he's now had a 4-start stretch with like a 1.80 ERA. Like he seems like he might be rounding into form here. Still could stand to throw more strikes, but really I could say that for Shane Smith too. Like prior to this start, I didn't really see anything to get excited about with Shane Smith. He finally has a start where he misses a decent number of bats. Okay, we'll see if that grows into more. He was facing the Marlins after all. But you know, he pitches for the White Sox. He's been steady enough so far. He deserves to be rostered at this point, Shane Smith does, but I think there's a little more upside to get excited about with Smith-Shawver.
How do you guys rank Smith-Shawver, Shane Smith, Tomoyuki Sugano, and Lucas Giolito?
I was about to say you just did, but you got to flip those last two. So I'll go Smith-Shawver, Shane Smith, Lucas Giolito, and Sugano.
I might go Giolito at the top. I don't feel super strongly about any of them, although Smith-Shawver does get the Nationals this week. What was Giolito's matchup? Does anybody remember off the top of their head? I can scroll. I lost it, so it doesn't matter.
I don't think I had it written in there. Giolito is home against the Braves this week.
I'll give Smith-Shawver the edge, but that kind of tells you where I'm at on all of them, where whatever the next start is might be the tiebreaker for all of them.
Yep. Next group of starting pitchers, we had Luis L. Ortiz, Michael Lorenzen, and Andre Palante all had strong starts this weekend. Ortiz is at the Reds this week, Lorenzen at the Astros, Palante at the Royals. Any interest in those three?
I could stream Ortiz at Cincinnati. I know it's a tough place to pitch, but that's not a bad matchup right now for a starting pitcher. That's Ellie De La Cruz has not taken the big step forward we hope for. Strikeout rate's still pretty high. So I'm okay with Ortiz there, but it's not a must start by any means.
Mm-hmm. I mean, are we impressed by this start against the Phillies? 1 earned run and 6, 9 strikeouts against the Phillies on national TV. It was good. It was a good start for Luis Ortiz, who's been like great at missing bats all year. Is there anything else there? Because he gives up really hard contact. I think the average exit velocity in this start was 101. And he also has strike throwing issues. So it's kind of just only missed bats. And if you're going to be good at one thing, I feel like that's the thing to be good at. But I don't, even as somebody who cites that stat maybe more than any other, I'm kind of viewing Luis Ortiz as pretty fringy for as good as this start was.
Mm-hmm. All right. This might be a deep league name here. Hunter Dobbins of the Red Sox, 6 shutout innings, 6 strikeouts, had 13 whiffs on 81 pitches. And some of the underlying numbers look pretty interesting here. He's at the Tigers this week. I don't know. Could this be a dude? Hunter Dobbins?
I think there's a chance Hunter Dobbins is better than any of the 6 pitchers from the previous 2 groups. I'm not saying I would add him ahead of AJ Smith-Shawver or Shane Smith or even Tomoyuki Sugano, but I think Hunter Dobbins is legitimately pretty talented. He was someone who, I don't know if Fangraphs officially moved him into their top 100 prospects before the season, but there was an article. He was a pick to click, someone that they think could be a top 100 guy next year, except, well, he's already getting pretty serious reps at the major league level, so might not have the opportunity. But I think Dobbins there's some talent here. He's got a decent fastball. He added a splinker at the end of last season that has looked pretty good. I think Hunter Dobbins is moderately interesting.
I don't think this one matters, but it was a great start, and I wanted to mention Will Warren at the Athletics, 7 1/3 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, had 12 whiffs on 87 pitches. It was the first time he went more than 5 innings in a start in his career, at least in his major league career. 25% rostered. I don't think we're acting on this, right? But obviously, it was a great start, and I guess a name to watch, Will Warren.
Yeah, there's some interesting things about him. He gets whiffs on his fastball. I think is it close to a 30% rate, I think I saw, which is high for a 4-seamer. And he's got a sweeper with 3,200 RPM. I'm surprised that pitch doesn't play better for him, as ridiculous as the spin rate is. So that's interesting. We need to see him go deep with some consistency because most of his starts have been very short. But somebody to keep an eye on is Will Warren, I would say.
And then the drop-o-meter for these 2 names, Brady Singer, the ERA is up to 4.97.
8, 7.
What was that a comment on? The
drop-o-meter.
Oh,
drop-o-meter on Brady.
Right. We got to give a number. Sorry. I thought you were correcting the ERA because he said 0.97. Okay. Yeah, I don't care about Singer. I'll go 9.
And then Luis Severino.
Just to one up Chris. 9.
Luis Severino's ERA is up to 4.70. He got bombed by his former team, the Yankees. Drop-o-meter on Severino.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
10. You probably had him just for the 2-star week.
All right. Let's try and run through the rest of this here. A quick thought on some of these polarizing starting pitchers, if we can make it quick. But Gavin Williams, 5 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts, 13 whiffs, only 1 hard hit in this one against the Phillies. It's a tough matchup. Has anything changed in your mind on Gavin Williams?
Even the good starts are a 160 whip.
Yeah, he clearly has control issues, but I get more encouraged with each start because now his sweeper, he got 9 whiffs just on the sweeper in this start. It's up to a 53% whiff rate for the year. He's had 8 strikeouts or more in 3 of his last 4 starts. It's not like I'm eager to put Gavin Williams back in my lineup, but it's okay, he's making progress. He's getting closer to who I thought he'd be. And the upside, I think, is high enough that I'm willing to wait it out. But he's got to stop walking so many guys for sure.
Too talented to drop. There might come a point where the light goes on, but it's not there yet.
Max Meyer had a quality start through 6 and then came out for the 7th, and he fell apart at the White Sox. 6 1/3, 5 runs allowed, 5 strikeouts here. And over his last 3 starts, it's an 8.80 ERA and a 1.89 whip. What are we doing with Max Meyer? Hold. Start. Bench.
Hold for sure. I don't. What's the next matchup? Tampa Bay.
Home against Tampa. Yeah.
Well, that's not a terrible matchup. I could.
He just got kicked around by the White Sox, though. So
he pitched well in this one, and it was both. It was very, very frustrating to see both Max Meyer and Sandy Alcantara just kind of fall apart in their last inning.
Here's what I've noticed about Meyer the last 3 starts, where it all took a turn for the worse. He started out throwing his slider, clearly his best pitch, 50% of the time. He was leaning on that. It was a world beater. And then for whatever reason, he's faded at the last 3 starts, including 33% of the time against the White Sox here. Like drastically reduced the usage of that pitch. And like it's clearly not working for him. I don't know if something's going on with the slider that's making him fade it, but got to get back to leaning into that slider, Max Meyer. You were a different pitcher like that.
Mm-hmm. Roki Sasaki had a rough outing at the D-backs, 4 innings, 5 runs, 2 walks to 0 strikeouts on the season, 22 walks to 24 strikeouts. He's still 91% rostered, 50% started, home against the Athletics this week. Do you hold Sasaki?
Started.
Do you just bench him? What are we doing?
I'd be okay dropping him, I think, in most contexts. There's a point where it could all click, and maybe it'll be like a Jason Dominguez situation where it's like, oh, shoot, he just had an 11 strikeout game. I wish I hadn't dropped him. But if I'm tight on roster space, like it's hard to envision a time in the next several weeks where I'm actually putting Sasaki in my lineup, which is why even more than the 91% roster, the 50% starting stats, surprisingly, like there hasn't been a single start yet where it's been worth it, right?
Was he a 2-start pitcher this week? I think he was. Maybe that, but
yeah,
there was an article on The Athletic talking about like the new plan for Roki Sasaki, and it was he's going to throw his fastball less hard to try to command it. And like this is a fastball that's not great at 96, 97. It's going to be pretty bad at 94, 95. I would prefer not to drop him just because we know how talented he is, but he doesn't look anywhere close to being an impact pitcher. Like if you were ranking every pitcher based on how they've pitched this season, I don't think Roki Sasaki's been one of the 110 best pitchers, 100 best pitchers in baseball. Like he's been bad.
Mm-hmm.
But process, underlying everything. He's barely got more strikeouts than walks. It's blind faith if you hang on to him in a way that it's not with a couple other pitchers who are struggling.
Mm-hmm. We just mentioned Sandy Alcantara, just kind of like left in too long here against the White Sox, but it was 4 runs over 5 2/3. His ERA is up over 8. He only threw 57% of his pitches for strikes. Same question. I mean, are you holding Sandy? Are you benching him? He's home against Tampa this week.
I'm holding. I'm not starting him, but I'm holding. I think this one was better overall. It was really just one bad pitch to Elko, actually. But other than that, it wasn't a terrible outing. So I'm hopeful that he starts to turn it around. But yeah, it's been really rough right now.
And then Bryce Miller, man, I do not think he is right. He struggled again against the Blue Jays, 5 innings, 7 runs. He's allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. The ERA is over 5. It's a 154 whip. He's still 72% started, and at the Padres this week, I don't think there's any way you could start Bryce Miller right now.
I don't think there's any way you can drop him, but I don't think I think we're to the point where you just sit him until he comes around. I had expressed a start or two ago that I thought really the main thing that seemed to be off for him was he wasn't throwing strikes at nearly the rate we've seen from him in the past. He's always been an elite control guy, Bryce Miller. But that hasn't been the case the last 2 starts. 65% strike rate in this start, 67% last time, or I may have reversed that. But the point is it's been good. He's been throwing a lot of strikes, a strike rate like we've seen from Bryce Miller in the past, and still the results are terrible. So, and there's been talk about him pitching through injury, not just like conjecture, but he's made reference to stuff he's going through physically. And so that I think should be the prevailing theory right now, is that he's just not healthy.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm at until we actually get confirmation on it. It's just speculation, but it kind of feels like that's the way things are leaning right now. Starters at these starting pitchers. Clay Holmes. Is he just a must-start pitcher now? Because, he's got a quality start in 3 of his last 4. He's allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 7 of 8. The ERA is down to 2.74. Home against the Pirates this week. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy start. But do you think Clay Holmes is bordering on a must-start pitcher now?
This is kind of like This is kind of reminding me of Eric Fetty a little bit, where I loved the guy going into the season and he's getting good results, but not in ways I totally trust. And so I guess he's trending up. Is he a must start yet against the Pirates? Sure. But no, I think I'd still play matchups. The swinging strike rate is terrible. The ground ball rate is much worse than we saw in relief. It's still a good ground ball rate overall, but it's not that elite Framber Valdez like ground ball rate. So how is Clay Holmes getting his outs? I don't know. What's the average? What's the exit velocity looking like for him? I would imagine it has to be pretty weak for him to have had success so far. But
the quality, like the expected WOBA on contact, is basically the same as when he was a
it's not
reliever.
That great. It's not that great. You know, a lot of, but obviously, maybe not obviously, but ground balls tend to be hit harder than fly balls.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you see ground ball pitchers have higher exit velocity readings, and it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but if his ground ball rate is going down and his exit velocity is going up and his swinging strike rate is way down, I don't know. Then the walk rate isn't great either. He's getting it done, and it's not quite as there's more to like here, I think, than there was for Eric Fetty when he was succeeding early last year, but it's still not enough for me to call Clay Holmes a must start.
This is one where it's not a fluke necessarily, but it feels very volatile. Like it feels like it could come apart pretty quickly.
Luis Castillo has been a bit underwhelming, and he had a rough one against the Blue Jays. 5 innings, 5 runs, only 3 strikeouts here, and his velocity was down in this start. He averaged just 93.6 miles per hour on the fastball. Last year, that was 95.6 for Luis Castillo. The whiff rate on that fastball has been trending down for years now as well. Do you start him home against the Yankees this week? That it's tough because at home, I think you just kind of want to auto start Luis Castillo, but Yankees, tough matchup.
Yeah, this feels like Kevin Gausman last year, where like he might be able to like veteran guile his way to a presentable ERA, but it's pretty clear that there's been a dramatic change in skill set and talent level for Luis Castillo. And I do think there's a chance things just fall apart on him. I can't say he's a sell high candidate with an ERA close to 4 and a whip of 1.4, but I am not expecting Luis Castillo to be a must-start pitcher the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Jack Flaherty, over his last 3 starts, has an 8.56 ERA and a 1.68 whip. His fastball is just getting clobbered this season. 64% started on CBS. He's at the Blue Jays this week. Starter sit Jack Flaherty.
I lean towards start because that's a pretty good matchup.
Agreed.
And like the secondaries are still good. And he's got off to a great start, remember. So I don't want to overemphasize what's happened the last couple of times through. But my faith is diminished to the point that he's not must start anymore. I just like the matchup.
You know what? I'm going to plant a flag here. I saw someone say we agree too much recently, so I'm going to disagree. I think Jack Flaherty is going to be just fine. Must start pitcher moving forward. I think he's going to figure it out.
All right. Ranger Suarez had a great start at the Guardians, 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. His first start back, obviously, was much worse, and then he improved here. He is home against the Pirates this week, only 37% started. So if you've got Suarez, I mean, now's the time to use him, right? Pirates?
Yep.
Sure. I mean, big contrast between first and second start for Ranger Suarez, so that makes me a bit leery, but yeah, I think coming off the strong effort against the Guardians, it makes sense to start him against the Pirates.
Zach Eflin was solid in his return from the IL at the Angels. 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. He is only 27% started and home against the Nationals this week.
Yep.
You starter sit Zach Eflin.
Yep. That's fine.
Right.
Start him. And
then Matthew Boyd, I don't know, might just be good. He was at the Mets this weekend, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, 0 walks. And he's 79% rostered, home against the White Sox. I mean, obviously get him in there, right? But I don't know. I think Boyd might be maybe one level higher than just that kind of boring streamer group that we usually talk about.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of grief for Boyd this year too, because he's maintained a low ERA, but everything else looked pretty bad for a while. Last 2 starts, he's thrown a lot more strikes. So control had been bad. The walk rate had been high. But the last 2 starts, the strike percentage is way up. I don't think he's walked anybody in either of those starts. And with that has come a lot more whiffs on the fastball and changeup, especially. Those 2 pitches play off each other well. That's the whole idea. And if Boyd is able to miss bats with his fastball, like the missing bats historically hasn't been an issue for Boyd. That's kind of like why this year, when it started out so low, I was like, okay, this is like, we know where Boyd usually goes, and that's when he's missing bats. So what's going to happen when he's not? But now that he is, and he's throwing a lot more strikes, I don't know. I'm more open to the idea of him needing to be rostered, and at least for now, you could play matchups with him. And he's not in the rundown, so I'll go ahead and bring him up because I think it's a similar situation. Griffin Canning just turned in maybe one of his best starts in an overall strong season. 2 hits against the Cubs over 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run in 6 innings, just his second 6-inning start. So he's had trouble going deep into games. But one thing that's different in Griffin Canning's profile beyond just the top line numbers, ground ball rate much higher, 53%, way higher. I don't know what's led to that. We've talked before about how the slider, that's been a good whiff pitch for him, and at times he's thrown it more this year, but that hasn't been consistent. The biggest change appears to be just that he's keeping the ball on the ground, and that's going to help to limit damage. The whip might run kind of high, especially if the walks continue at the rate they have. But I think Griffin Canning, I think it's time to give him a little bit of credit too. Not that I think he's going to be this good all season, but if that ground ball rate stays up, he'll be plenty startable with the right matchups.
All right, let's wrap up with some leftovers here. And on the pitching side of things, Jacob deGrom, 10 strikeout start here. Tanner Bybee, 7 innings, 1 run against the Phillies. Garrett Crochet, great start against the Royals, 7 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. And Zach Wheeler on Sunday Night Baseball, 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts. Chris, all these guys are pretty good. Anything to add on deGrom, Bybee, Crochet, and Zach Wheeler?
deGrom, I think, is good. I think he's very, very good. I don't think we're going to get the best pitcher in baseball upside from him. And, even in a start where he was cooking, man, 21 swinging strikes on 90 pitches, the pitch rate just got a little bit too high, where in the past, starting the 6th inning with 90 pitches, that might have been viable. I don't think the Rangers are going to really run that risk with Jacob deGrom. So I think it's just been a lot of, not like he's been good. It hasn't been too frustrating. It's just like, he's not that guy anymore. And then I will say, I think Tanner Bybee's a sell high candidate, even with a 3.80 ERA. I just don't see a lot going on that's good for Tanner Bybee. He seems to be transitioning to more of a pitch to contact profile, going away from his 4-seamer, leaning on the cutters and sinkers a little more. And I'm not saying he can't be good, but I don't think he can be great like this. So I'm pretty pessimistic about Tanner Bybee moving forward. I think he's like right now a true talent, high 3s ERA pitcher.
I mean, I'm maybe putting a little more on the track record here. I don't like what I've seen so far, but I also know previous 2 years it started out rough and then he finished very strong both times. So I think he's going to find it. I guess I'm going to make the same case for Bybee that you made for Jack Flaherty. Not that I think he has ace upside, but I think if you drafted him to be a solid number 3, and I think in the long run, I still trust him to be that.
Pitching leftovers part 2. We had great starts from Logan Webb, Joe Ryan. Actually, Joe Ryan out-dueled Logan Webb in that start. And then Nathan Eovaldi continues to dominate, 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. Anything on Webb, Joe Ryan, and Eovaldi?
So Eovaldi this might be the best version of Eovaldi. He's in his mid-30s. He has a long track record. Best case scenario, the ERA's always ended up in the high 3s, even as he's had dominant stretches. But this has been so dominant. Like, he's looked like one of the best pitchers in baseball to this point. And he has changed his arsenal this year.
Lot, yeah.
Yeah. More curveballs, which has been his best pitch this year. It's had more break than in years past. So it's been a better curveball, and he's thrown it more. More cutters as well. He's kind of achieved close to an equal balance between those two and his top 2 pitches, the fastball and the splitter. So he's had a more varied arsenal, and among the pitches he's thrown more is what's now clearly his best pitch, the curveball. And so that might be contributing to his success here. Control has been good, probably impossibly good. It's 0.8 walks per 9 so far. So he's going to have to regress some, obviously, as low as his ERA is, and the control would be the main way that happens, I would think, because it's too good to be true. But with those arsenal changes, I'm willing to hear the possibility that this ends up being a career season for Eovaldi, even at his advanced stage. Again, that's acknowledging career season for him to this point is like a 3.74 ERA. But still, I could see him having like a 3.30-ish ERA by the time this year is done. It could happen.
All right, and then some hitting leftovers. No slow start for Francisco Lindor. He had a sock and a shoe on Friday. He added another steal on Saturday and then another home run on Sunday. Gunnar Henderson is waking up. He had 2 home runs this weekend. Aaron Judge, a double dong on Saturday, and then a 4-hit game on Sunday. He is now batting .409 with a .494 on-base percentage. Rafael Devers, 4-hit game Saturday, homered on Sunday, and he is now up to 7 home runs and an .888 OPS. Pretty much where we need Rafael Devers to be.
Sounds like what they really need to do is make that guy upset. And maybe he'll just keep getting better.
Yeah. Elliot Ramos is turning things around. He homered on both Saturday and Sunday. Christian Yelich, almost every time he's homered this season, he's also stolen a base in that same game. It's happened already 4 times this year, which is just interesting. Paul Goldschmidt, 2 for 4.
Sock in the shoe. He wants to hear you say it.
That's right. 2 for 4 with his 4th home run for Goldie, and then 3 more hits on Sunday. He's now batting .349 with a near .900 OPS. Freddie Freeman is just a monster right now. 4 for 4 with his 9th home run on Sunday. He's hitting .475 in May. And then Kyle Schwarber, a double dong. And look, contract year for Schwarbs. Guy is he's off to a tremendous start so far this season.
Doesn't he like typically get off to pretty slow starts too? Am I remembering correctly? Isn't he like June is like consistently his crazy month?
June is usually the crazy month.
It's like Lindor and Judge last year where we're getting them without the slow starts. Yeah, Schwarber doubling down on what worked last year, going away from, a little more fly ball heavy approach, hitting a lot fewer pop-ups as well. Pop-up rate over the past 2 seasons has I think it's half of what it was in 2022 and 2023. So yeah, he looks about as good as ever. It's going to be fascinating to see what his free agency is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's a little bit older too, right? Like
he's
33,
34,
yeah.
DH only, but he's just an absolute monster who also comes up huge in the clutch. He's 32 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what the contract looks like from him.
Some bullpen updates from the weekend for the Tigers on Friday. Canley pitched in the 8th, and then Will Vest pitched in the 9th. Do you guys think there is a clear pitcher here, or is it just pattern. Like 50-50 between those two, basically?
I think we've been seeing Vest a little more in the 9th than Canley, so I would give him the edge, but it's not clear cut.
Mm-hmm. For the Pirates on Friday, David Bednar was using the 8th inning, facing 9-1-2 in the Braves lineup, and then Dennis Santana actually picked up the save. He gave up 2 runs in that outing, but
And
kind of
then-
interesting usage, right?
And then Santana also worked the 9th in a tie game Sunday that ended up getting the win because the Pirates scored to win it. But notably, this coincides, the sudden favoritism of Santana coincides with a managerial change. And
Yeah, I guess
I
that's-
wonder what that means for David Bednar. It
I will
seems
say
like
Bednar-
Don Kelly prefers Santana.
Bednar may not have been available on Sunday. He had
Yeah.
pitched the previous 2 games, so that's
Maybe
just
not,
noting
but then
that.
but then you have the day before where he worked the 8th and Santana the 9th. So
Yeah, I mean, good point about the managerial change there. Yeah, could be something for the Pirates. For the D-backs, I mentioned earlier that the Dodgers just had this huge comeback win in the 9th inning. Most of that against Kevin Ginkel. He was charged with 5 earned runs. So I assume that the next save opportunity will go to Shelby Miller, but
Yeah.
what do I know? For the Marlins, Jesus Tinoco has been picking up some saves for them recently. He leads the team with 3, but it kind of feels messy, right? And they're not very good.
it is messy and they're not very good, but I was picking him up in some leagues where he's available. I think he's the new front runner for the Marlins, given the way I know before this, he worked another situation where a closer would typically work, and Fauché has been working earlier in games. I don't remember the exact situation. Obviously, it wasn't a save situation, but there have been a few outings in a row that kind of reinforced the idea Tinoco's the top guy in the Marlins bullpen, at least for now.
For the Cubs on Saturday, Porter Hodge picked up the save. Brian Presley was not used in that game. Not surprised because had that terrible outing last week. And then Porter Hodge was used on Sunday in the 8th inning with the game tied. He was charged with 3 runs on 3 hits, took his first loss. Cubs bullpen is just a mess right now.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be that none of these guys are good and they got to go out and get a closer. That might be the most likely explanation.
Yep. And then for the Giants on Sunday, Ryan Walker got the 10th inning with a 1-run lead. He allowed 2 runs, one of those earned, took his second blown save and second loss. You know, his ERA is over 6. His whip is 150. Camilo Doval's numbers are much better. I don't know how many more times they need to see this happen before.
Well, I've noticed too with Ryan Walker, the arm angle has it's not as low as last year. It's gone up a little bit. It's closer to where it was 2 years ago when he was just kind of an ordinary reliever. So I wonder if that's factoring into the results now, and that's something that's fixable, obviously, but and maybe it'll get fixed. But in the meantime, they could just go to Camilo Doval, who's been amazing so far, and obviously has a longer history closing than Ryan Walker. So it seems like it seems like they might as well just do that. Like even if they still believe in Ryan Walker and think they can bring him around, like, why keep risking games waiting for it to happen when you got Doval right there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's wrap up with to stream or not to stream. On Monday, we have Justin Verlander home against the D-backs. Colin Ray gets the Marlins. Ryan Gusto is facing the Royals. Jake Irvin at the Braves. Tanner Houck at the Tigers.
Ray's probably at the top. I don't mind Verlander as a 2-star pitcher, but if we're just talking about this matchup, I'd probably try to avoid it. Man, Houck, if he followed up that one really good start with a pretty mediocre one the next time out, so can't get excited about that. I think it's Ray and then maybe Gusto versus Kansas City, but I don't really love that one, so don't love the Monday matchups.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then on Tuesday we have Jack Leiter gets the Rockies in Texas. Ben Brown is home against the Marlins. Andrew Abbott home against the White Sox. Brian Bayo's at the Tigers.
Yeah, that's the one. Abbott.
Yep.
Abbott against the White Sox, and I added him to the sleeper, the week 8 sleeper pitchers list because he became a 2-star pitcher with Hunter Green being removed from the rotation, and the first of those starts is against the White Sox. So yeah, I like him as a weekly streamer too.
I don't mind Ben Brown versus Miami and Jack Leiter versus Colorado. I know he's been very bad since coming back from the IL, but Stephen Kolek, that's his name. Stephen Kolek just had a complete game shutout against the Rockies.
And
I think Jack Leiter's more talented than Stephen Kolek.
And this is the Rockies' first start out of Coors Field. So, yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.